This is David Anthony, inside his wife Gretchen's home. David nervously paces around for minutes before leaving the camera's view. What the camera doesn't capture is the brutal murder that took place. And when David returns into the camera's view, he's carrying the very remains of his own wife. Unfortunately for the family of Gretchens, David has been plotting this murder for weeks and doesn't plan on getting caught anytime soon. But small flaws in David's plan would result in one of the most insane criminal manhunts ever recorded. As David tries to cover his tracks, altering his story, misleading investigators, and staying one step ahead of the law. And police try to bring justice to Gretchen once and for all.
Turn around!
Get out of the car!
Drop it! Drop it! Whatever it is!
David and his wife Gretchen's marriage deteriorated heavily in February 2020. David had just lost his job, and arguments began to sprout between the two, which wasn't unusual. But this time, something was different. This time, Gretchen's life would be put at stake, because these arguments were unlike anything she had ever experienced before. They were violent and threatening. Due to a previous car accident, David had become extremely erratic, irritable, and highly aggressive as he had developed bipolar disorder. Gretchen knew that this was not the same David she had married, so the couple decided it was time to end things and go their separate ways. By March of 2020, the couple was ready to wrap up their divorce. But for David, this was unacceptable. He moved in with his mother to escape these feelings and began showing signs of severe mental distress. Distress that would peak when the COVID pandemic hit. David began believing the pandemic was an end-of-the-world prophecy and that Costa Rica was the only safe haven for him. So he started to relentlessly beg his wife to leave everything behind in Jupiter, Florida, and move all the way to Costa Rica. Understandably, Gretchen refused, so David decided that he was better off going alone. But before he left, there was something he needed to do. At 6 a.m. on March 21st, 2020, David sneaks into the house through the porch and roams around the patio. But Gretchen wasn't asleep. She hears the noise, turns on the lights, and makes her way downstairs from the master bedroom, just trying to figure out what's going on. David hears her coming down, waits patiently behind the door, and as soon as Gretchen comes out, David assaults her and drags her to the garage, all while she screams for Alexa to call the authorities. A few minutes later, the screams would go silent. Gretchen was dead. David would begin pacing around the garage, wiping any stain he saw with bleach and harsh cleaning products. Cameras would even capture him carrying around rags so heavily stained with blood that they were completely red. All that was left was for David to dump his now dead wife's car somewhere that the officers couldn't find. But before he did, he would tear down every single camera to make sure no one would catch wind of his crimes. David had been planning this for months, and he wasn't going to make it easy to be caught. For 2 days after Gretchen's disappearance, on March 22nd and 23rd, family members could not get in touch with her and started to worry and grow suspicious. But David had seen this coming. It was time to put his plan into motion. Right before her murder, David took Gretchen's phone and used it to tell all of her family members that she had contracted COVID on the morning of March 24th and that she was being treated in Jupiter Medical Center. For the most part, this seemed plausible, even though Gretchen's parents noticed that her texting habits were different and the conversations ended rather quickly. Unfortunately, their worst fears would come true on March 24th. There were no more texts, and Gretchen went completely radio silent. Police were quickly contacted and a 6-state hunt for Gretchen's whereabouts was on. And luckily, the police had a lead. Since Gretchen's last known location was her home in a dense Jupiter neighborhood, the first order of priority was to search her house to find any clues about what happened. And this is when a witness would come up to officers to give her testimony about what she heard on the morning of March 21st.
So when we were over here about to go into the residence, you came up to us and said, "Hey, is this about someone who was attacked?" So explain that to me, or elaborate. What prompted you to come over and say that to us?
Well, because on Saturday morning,
I guess it was Saturday because of the pictures, but I heard a really serious woman scream, just screaming, like she was being attacked, but she wasn't saying help. She wasn't saying anything like that. And I thought maybe it's kids in the neighborhood or something. My windows were open. I can't really tell where it's coming from, but it really sounded like it was coming from that alley. Right? Like I was ignoring it, like maybe it was just kids or something, and then it didn't stop, and then I heard her scream no, and then I heard something about it hurts, stop it, and then I got up and came outside and walked down the alley, and then saw a truck backed in that I didn't recognize. It was backed in a couple doors down. Like it just sounded like it was coming from here, and I went and just waited outside. I was outside for about 15 minutes. I didn't hear anything else. The truck was running. There wasn't anybody in it. The truck was running. So I took pictures of the truck just in case.
The truck that this witness refers to is David's. Since he knew that officers would have easily been able to find Gretchen's Mini Cooper, he drove off in it and parked it in Jupiter Medical Center. This would act as a red herring for the authorities and distract them for long enough to get David to use his own truck and get rid of any evidence. Furthermore, right after Gretchen's disappearance, David drove to Las Cruces, New Mexico, putting as much distance between himself and the authorities as possible. Unfortunately, officers do not know this yet and need to investigate who the truck belongs to first. For now, they can only gather details about the night of the disappearance itself.
Is this your house here, 3348 with the gray Ford SUV?
Yep. I can't see anything.
Okay.
So I couldn't see anything out the back door. So I came downstairs and then walked over here. I mean, the screaming it went on for a few minutes.
Okay.
It wasn't like, that's why I thought maybe it was kids. But there wasn't nobody was yelling help. Nobody was yelling help, which is why I didn't call the police. But then I walked over here.
So this is 1320. So this is the house where we are now.
She has a daughter, too.
And you said the truck was parked where?
The truck was over here at 1310.
Okay, so a couple spaces down.
And it didn't belong here.
Okay. You know the cars that belong here?
I don't know these people. I don't know it, but I don't recognize that. I didn't recognize that truck. There's a lot of people that come to do trash pickups in the day, so I thought that. But I stayed out here. I must have stayed out here for 10 minutes and nobody came.
After this witness statement, officers proceeded with the search of Gretchen's house, and what they found was horrifying. The house was filled with cleaning products and spatters of blood. Bloody rags were scattered across the entire house, even on the washing machines. Not only that, but the entire residence had a pungent stench of cleaning products and showed clear signs that a struggle had taken place, especially the master bedroom, where the entire room had been turned upside down, as well as a broken picture frame in one of the halls in the home. Additionally, the driveway was filled with stains suspected to be caused by water mixed with unknown chemicals. No matter how careful David was, he most certainly did not notice how much evidence he truly left behind. Likely he couldn't see the intensity of the stains in the dark and didn't have enough time to clean every trace as the sun was beginning to rise and people were waking up for work. Immediately after finding these clues in the home, officers began to track David's movement to see if they could find any preliminary clues. But something was off. David's phone pinged in Las Cruces, New Mexico, nearly 1,600 miles away from Jupiter, Florida. As they began investigating his trail, they discovered something that would put David directly at the top of the suspects list. David Anthony was spotted at several pawn shops selling the jewelry that he stated belonged to a loved one that had passed away. Not only that, but his truck matched the exact description of the vehicle that the witness saw on the morning of Gretchen's disappearance. Soon enough, Las Cruces police were contacted to hunt David down. Luckily, they were able to initiate an arrest before he could get further away.
Hands off the vehicle! He rolled up the window, thank you. Driver! He rolled his window up. He didn't. Put your hands up! Hands up! Hands up so I can see him. Keep them up for me, please. Go ahead and place your keys on top of the truck. Put your hands up. Put them up. Walk towards me. Go ahead and stop. Who else is in the car with you? Turn around. Keep your hands up, please. Take a step back. Step to your left. Another step, please, to your left. Take it. Hayes.
Yeah, I'm moving on you.
Somebody. I got it. Put your hands behind your back.
Immediately after this arrest, officers began searching his truck to find several items that are incredibly suspicious. They discover several of Gretchen's belongings, including her phone, ID, and 3 broken Blink cameras. Usually, it would not be possible to recover the data from a camera storing data physically, but Blink cameras store their data on a cloud, which unfortunately would take a while for the officers to access. Until now, the pawn shop visits, Gretchen's belongings, and keeping all the evidence in his truck seem like mistakes from David's end. But they are nothing less than a grand plan to prove his innocence, because as investigators approach him for answers after his arrest, he already knows what to say to get him out of trouble.
What am I being detained for?
Okay, so like I said, you're not under arrest or being detained, but this is from an incident stemming from down in Florida. You're from Jupiter, correct?
I'm originally from West Palm Beach.
Okay.
But my family stays in Jupiter, yeah.
Okay.
So
that's
what's
what
going on in Jupiter?
Well, so that's what I'm trying to find out, man. I don't have a whole lot of details on the case. That's why I'm trying to see if you can help me fill in some of these holes that I have.
But I don't know what you're talking about. So,
So
help me, like.
All right. So this is about your wife. Okay, I guess she's been reported missing.
Last I heard, she was in a CDC facility getting treatment for coronavirus.
And see, what makes you believe that?
Our sister texted it to me.
Her sister did? Texted to you. Where's the CDC place at?
She didn't mention it. She said I was an Mexican and I hadn't heard anything and not to call me. So.
When's the last time you talked to your wife?
She texted me like after I had got out with the last incident. She was like complete insanity, and so that was the last time.
Her sister's the one that texted you, right? You're saying that she was in a CDC facility or whatever?
Yeah.
When did she text you?
A couple days ago.
On your cell phone?
On my cell phone.
You saw that text message?
I do.
Where's your cell phone?
Can we see it?
Would you be able to show us that text message where she says?
I'm not.
Okay, and that's fine. We just.
Yeah, I mean, I can screenshot it and text it to you if you want.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
And, well, yeah. We'll talk about it in a
just
minute.
wanted to make sure because that's what we're. She's been missing, so that's why we're. If somebody's saying that, well, that way we can track her down, try to find that CDC where she's at.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
David has given a completely safe alibi that matches precisely what Gretchen described in her texts. Not only that, but he even has texts that Gretchen had sent to her family regarding her COVID situation. He was, once again, one step ahead of the officers. Consequently, officers do not have enough evidence to charge or arrest David at this point in time and are forced to let him go. But right before David is released, he leaves behind a cryptic hint for officers.
Because when we talked, she mentioned, like, I don't know how much I can share without, like, you know what I mean? Like, she mentioned being in trouble.
The trouble, David mentions, was a carefully thought-out backup plan in case officers began cracking down on his COVID story, because he knew that he had slipped up not only because of Gretchen's phone that had just been found in his car, but also because there were several inconsistencies in the texts he sent to Gretchen's family, which would be pointed out when Gretchen's sister calls Jupiter Police Department.
I know this is all going to sound very crazy, but my sister lives in Jupiter.
What's her name?
Her name is Gretchen Anthony. She just texted us on Tuesday morning saying that she wasn't feeling well, but she went to the ER because she felt like she might have the coronavirus. And then she said that she was kind of put on this off-site facility to be treated. A lot of the story doesn't make sense. The text message came across as, the testing facility is going to get the kits at 10A. like 10 a.m. Gretchen doesn't talk like that. Like she would say 10 a.m. or 10 o'clock.
These texts mentioned that Gretchen was facing potential lung failure and was about to go into a medically induced coma, which is why she was with an alleged CDC task force at Jupiter Medical Center. However, Gretchen's ex-husband Jeff decided to look into these claims and came to a harrowing realization, one that he would call officers to tell them about.
I found out from a dear friend who's a physician that firstly they don't ship anybody off-site,
Right.
transport anybody off-site.
Right.
There is no CDC or coronavirus task force facility, and any patients that are presenting signs of coronavirus are treated at the hospital. That seemed awfully fishy to me. You know, I was smelling rats left and right.
Hearing this testimony, suspicions were once again shifted to David because he had so adamantly claimed that she was being treated for coronavirus. But this is where the trouble he previously mentioned would come into play. As detectives call him again to confirm his alibi and possibly probe deeper into his COVID story to confront him with these inconsistencies, David suddenly goes into detail about what he wanted to tell the officers in their first interaction.
I spoke with Gretchen today.
You spoke with Gretchen today?
Yeah.
So what?
We've obtained legal representation.
You what?
And we've obtained legal representation.
You both have?
She wants to prepare a statement. Gretchen is receiving treatment for the COVID virus. Before she contacted the virus, she uncovered illegal federal tax fraud and fraudulent accounting practices by her employer.
Okay.
On falsifying invoices to overcharge their main customer. Gretchen's terrified for her life. Someone was sent to her house to hurt her the other weekend. She's trying to put the pieces together just like you are. Gretchen hasn't ruled out her ex-husband, Jeff Dreyer. Gretchen and Jeff resumed an intimate relationship based on payment for sex. Jeff refers to Gretchen as a gold-digging fat and he hates having to give her $1,000 a month in child support. He wants to pass along a note to her daughter, Sister Sarah, that Gretchen loves him very much. That's all the information Gretchen is willing to share at this time.
David already knew that the CDC task force facade would not hold up for long, most likely because the virus was relatively new and he was unable to research the proper protocol for responding to COVID-19. By painting Gretchen to be a whistleblower, her lying about having COVID would make sense because it gave her an excuse to go into hiding. Not only that, but painting a picture of hostility from her ex-husband also provided an alternate suspect in her murder. She was just someone who got involved in something too big for her shoes, all the while being stalked and hunted down by a violent ex-partner. And once again, David was one step ahead and caused this case to become even more complex. There was even a chance that he could get away scot-free with everything. But he made one slight slip-up. He mentions that someone had been sent to kill her the week prior. This was done to paint a picture that people were out to get Gretchen, and she had run away because of an assassination attempt. What David does not know is that shortly after this call, officers finally cracked the cameras and got access to the cloud with all of the footage. And they would take a shot of his face, clear as day. Not only that, but officers also decided to look into Gretchen allegedly being at Jupiter Medical Center and would soon realize that they were fooled this entire time. Records at the facility would show that there was no mention of Gretchen even being entered into their database. Moreover, her Mini Cooper was also found in the parking lot. Luckily, CCTV footage would show who parked it there. Once cameras from the Jupiter Medical Center were checked, it captured David parking his dead wife's car in the parking lot on the morning of her murder. Immediately, a warrant was put out for his arrest in New Mexico, and soon enough, David would pay for his crimes.
There's a warrant for your arrest, and I'm going to explain that when we get back to the... Excuse me? What? Homicide.
For who?
Who do you think?
That's why I asked the question.
We'll talk about it at the headquarters, okay?
Although David has been arrested, detectives need to get to the bottom of what happened on the night of March 21st, and, most importantly, where Gretchen's body is. This is why, after his arrest on March 31st, he would be called in for an interview, one that he had thoroughly prepared for.
We have obtained enough evidence to obtain a warrant
for your arrest for murder. She survived. I want you to understand that. And what's most important to us right now is to find out where she is. Yeah, I'd like to be able to tell you where she is. But I don't have that information. You have to ask her. I told you that we've been working since Thursday, and we gathered a lot of information that I'm sure you're not aware of. And I want to let you know that. What information? There was a neighbor that heard the entire incident on Saturday morning at 6:30, who lives across the way. I want you to think about that real quick. What incident? The incident that occurred at Gretchen's home. What does that have to do with me? You don't know anything about that? That's what I'm asking you. Okay.
David's strategy going into this is to reject any claims of Gretchen's death completely. After all, detectives have no direct proof of Gretchen's death. They may have seen Gretchen on the cameras, but they are yet to recover a dead body. The only proof they have so far is bloodstains, bloody rags, and the CCTV footage. So even if there is all the evidence that points to David being a murderer, he would still leverage this loophole in order to maintain his innocence.
Your vehicle on that morning, your truck, your Nissan black truck, with the gear in the back, with the tarp over the top, and with the bicycle hanging out the back, was at Gretchen's home Saturday morning at 6:30 in the morning when this incident occurred. What does that mean? Were you at Gretchen's residence last Saturday at 6:30 in the morning?
She told me they stole my vehicle, so
I did. I'm asking you to be truthful with us.
Well, I'm asking you to explore all options, that's all. Like, this is like, you know,
Absolutely.
if you know, you have the ex-husband involved, you know, she likes sex, she likes drugs. You know, at one point, she mentioned she's like seeing 22 guys.
If what David says is the truth, then this would explain many of their arguments. But what David does not mention is that he himself had weird and psychotic tendencies. Throughout his fitness career, there would often be rumors of him assaulting women and having severe manic episodes. One such example of this was a bizarre public breakdown he had after Kobe Bryant tragically passed away in 2020. These tendencies had particularly gotten worse after an accident in 2017, after which David felt like a completely different person, like one of his friends would outline.
David was underneath the car working on the car. He had it lifted up. The car fell off the lift and on his head. The ambulance had to come, and he was in the hospital for a long time. It was a very serious head injury. Gretchen, and then even Gretchen's sister, said to me that David was never the same after that mentally.
This accident resulted in a traumatic brain injury, and afterwards, he became angrier, more violent, and extremely unpredictable. His severe manic episodes worsened and paranoia grew, which resulted in those around him to believe that he had developed bipolar disorder. Things had gotten so bad, especially for Gretchen, that she once texted her friend saying, "I'm watching him on the cameras. I'm waiting for him to go to bed. Then I'll go downstairs to put a knife under my pillow just in case and hopefully get some sleep." The relationship between the two had spiraled downwards. This was no longer a marriage. This was a battle to see who could survive, because by the time the divorce papers rolled around, David lost it completely. The fights became incredibly violent, and Gretchen began fearing for her life. The disconnect between the couple had become so severe that Gretchen even talked to Tabitha, David's ex-boss, at one of the gyms he worked at. Initially, Tabitha minded the fact that Gretchen had been liking her photos and expresses her distaste for both her and David. But with Gretchen's responses, she says that she does not associate with David and that he has been lying to both of them. Moreover, she also explicitly states that David is going through mental health issues and immediately needs help. It is difficult to tell whether this was the only reason that resulted in him killing Gretchen or if his motives ran much deeper. What is certain is that David became much colder than ever before, and he wouldn't let these detectives catch on to him anytime soon.
So what happened after you got to her house?
You saw my vehicle there, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you, what happened?
What happened after? I can shape the fact that your vehicle was there and you were there. I can't shape the fact of what Kelly just asked. What were you doing there?
Yeah, it's between me and her. So I'm husband and wife, so I can enact that right.
Okay, I realize that. Were you there the entire weekend?
You said you saw my vehicle, so
yeah.
As far as my whereabouts are concerned.
Gretchen's home has cameras throughout it. Were you aware of that? There's video of you, David, at Gretchen's home last Saturday at 6:30 a.m.
You said they saw my vehicle there. So.
Yeah, not just your vehicle there. There's video inside her home when you made contact with her that morning, when you met with her. And that video shows something other than a pleasant interaction. Do you remember that?
Not this time.
Do you don't remember that?
David, we really don't need you to tell us what happened because we already know what happened.
It doesn't matter. We have that. We have what happened.
Then what are we
doing?
doing?
Need to do
what are we doing?
Is find her.
And what are we doing?
He's telling you.
Well,
we know what happened because the video tells us what happened, right? Okay. But
so let's get past that.
So what happened? So what happened?
You killed her.
I've told you this numerous times. She's still alive.
We all know she's dead, and you know she's dead. The thing that I asked you when we first sat down here is to find the location.
If you have all the information that you need, then I don't know what else.
Ava would like for you to tell her where her mother's buried.
Use Ava in this.
We are. You see that little girl right there? I want you to look at her.
I love her.
Look at her. I know you do.
Then
look at her real good.
Then why would I ever hurt her mother?
Maybe it was an accident.
Maybe, exactly.
Ava is the daughter that Gretchen had with her ex-husband, Jeff Murray, and after their divorce, Gretchen retained primary custody of Ava. Tragically, she was 12 years old at the time of these events and now has to live without a mother. But more importantly, Ava and David had a special connection, one which he had explicitly told officers about when they had first approached him in Las Cruces.
When the last time you talked to your wife, you said it was face-to-face. How was that conversation with you? Was it okay?
Okay. No, even though we didn't get along, I love her. And I cared for her, and I always tried to show the God for her. Just didn't see eye to eye on things, and this is how things go. But my love for her stepdaughter is like unmatched. I taught her how to ride a bike and shoot a basketball hoop and use her awareness.
By using Ava, detectives wish to appeal to David's emotions in hopes of making him break.
You know how screwed up this little girl is going to be growing up, not knowing or having any closure about what happened with her mom?
You have no idea.
I do have an idea.
You don't.
I deal with victims, families, victims every day.
She's still alive, so she doesn't have to worry about it.
What makes you think she's still alive? She's not on the SunPath video when she followed you. You have her phone. You sent the text messages. You planted her car at Jupiter Medical Center because you're on video doing it.
We have all that information.
She had me do it.
No way.
She's screaming for her life on that.
Screaming bloody murder, as the neighbor described it. You can hear it in a video.
When you put your hand, when you
why
put
didn't
her
you call the police?
Because she didn't, and that woman has to live with that. You know that? That's unfortunate, and I feel bad for that woman.
I have video of me killing her.
How do you know what we have?
Show it to me. Show me the video.
Her dead body.
Show me the video.
Her dead body is right
Show
there.
me the video.
I know that it exists.
Okay, then show it to me.
I showed you the pictures.
Okay. The picture doesn't tell anything.
Well, I'm telling you it exists.
It shows that
Still
you
alive.
confronted her on the porch and she came outside her back patio and said, "What are you doing?"
She's still alive.
David, we would like to be able to tell the judge that you cooperated with us and at least gave Ava some closure and told her where her mother was. But you continuously denying that she's still alive and she's El Paso, when that doesn't even make sense because we have her car, we have you planting the car, we have you on the SunPath cameras, and she's not with you.
So then what do we do? Like,
What are we
You
doing?
have all the video. You have all the.
The reason why we are here is to find where her mother is located. Where her
in El
mother's
Paso.
where her mother's deceased body is
She's in
located.
El Paso.
That's why we're here. You just asked why we're here, and I told you point blank. What we are here is to find out where her deceased mother's body is.
So you've already declared her deceased.
Yeah.
You've declared her deceased.
Yes.
You're lying like you did before, and you're lying like you did before. So
You're not lying, David.
No, nobody's lying.
I said she's dead, and the cadaver dog hit on
I
it.
don't trust you. You guys lie. Show me the video.
There's just still pictures taken from the video,
She's still alive.
and yet you have no evidence to prove that. Right?
It's not on me to prove it.
You're right, because we proved she's dead.
We prove she's not here.
If you prove she's dead, then what are we doing?
We just said that. What are we doing? The number one thing we said we were doing when we first came in here, you keep saying that, then what are we doing? David, what are we doing? We're trying to find out where her mother is.
To try to create a narrative.
No, we're not lying anything.
She's still alive.
No, she's not. We asked, you keep asking the same question.
So
what
do
are we
you.
doing here?
So do you guys.
What are we doing
One
here?
question.
You guys
Where is
the
she?
same question.
One question
You
is
guys
all we
keep asking
have.
the same question.
The same question, exactly,
And
because
as
you haven't
husband and wife, I'll
answered it.
protect. I have the right to not say anything regarding her.
The wife that you guys are getting divorced and that you've
But
been
we're not
separated.
But we're not.
That's
So-
not what I said. I said getting divorced.
But we're not. So
And you
I
were
still have
separated.
rights as a husband and wife.
And you were
I still have
separated.
rights as a husband and wife.
And you killed her.
And I've given you as much information as I have. I've been cooperative up to this point, and now you're trying to frame murder on me.
I'm just going to go call Eva and tell
Okay.
her that you're not cooperating. We'll see how she feels about that.
All right.
David, we didn't come up here
To frame me?
No, we didn't come up here to give you a BS story. Okay? We came up here to find out where this little girl's mom is, find out where Gretchen's mom is. I'm sorry, to find out where Ava's mother is.
Gretchen's mom?
We'll find out where Ava's mother, Gretchen, is. My apologies, I twisted my tongue.
You do that a lot. You all do.
Unfortunately, these detectives have been completely outsmarted. David's whistleblower alibi is solid enough for him to avoid confessing to his crimes. Usually this would not be possible in the face of such incriminating evidence, but in this case, these detectives have tried to use emotional strategies like talking about Ava to a man who does not feel emotion to begin with. Moreover, David has remained incredibly sharp during this interview and caught on to any mistakes, giving him even more of a psychological edge. And in a last-ditch effort, detectives use a message that Ava had recorded for David to get him to confess.
David, I'm gonna play something for you. I need you to listen.
David, I love you. I'm scared. I miss my mom. I need to know where my mom is. Please do the right thing and tell me where my mom is. Please, I love you.
David, you don't want to believe that you are some kind of a monster, do you?
Sure, do you think so?
I don't think she does.
She does. I'm a monster to her.
No.
Even though her mother's still alive.
No, her mother is not alive. Her mother is dead. Her mother is not alive.
I'm enacting my husband-wife privilege.
A husband-wife privilege is a right given to a person to refuse to testify to any confidential communication made by their spouse to the other during marriage. By using this right, even in the face of such overwhelming and compelling evidence that can easily prove David's guilt, he has still managed to reserve a bargaining chip, all the while making a fool of these detectives. Information about the dead bodies can often easily be used by suspects in a trial to enter into plea deals and get reduced sentences. This is because most families wish for closure, and without the dead body, this is not possible. This is why David's bargaining chip was so strong, and it was possible he could get a reduced sentence, at least until officers received an anonymous tip.
I remembered horrible rotting smell as I was driving home from work. You know, I've smelled dead animals before, and it smelled a little out of the ordinary. I noticed some buzzards flying in the air, and that's where the buzzards were flying.
This call referenced a busy area in Jupiter, and not El Paso like David had originally told detectives, possibly in an attempt to get them as far away as possible. Simultaneously with this call, David's trial was underway, and his defense counsel approached the prosecution with a plea deal. David would tell them the location of the dead body, and in return, he would wish for a lighter sentence. Fortunately, though, this deal did not go through, and 10 months after her murder on December 21st, 2020, Gretchen's body was found right in the center of a small wooded area in the area of Bush Road and Indiantown Road. Her body had deteriorated so much that the only identifiable factor was her tattoos. According to an autopsy, the cause of death was determined to be multiple stab wounds to the neck and torso. With this, there was no escape for David. Every single one of his pitiful attempts to leverage loopholes and information had come to a close, leading to a breakdown during his trial.
I've created irreparable damage in the worlds of people who loved me. Gretchen loved me, Ava loved me, and Gretchen's family loved me. But I shunned that love with a cold-hearted, evil act. I disgraced my family. I'm hated by some beyond words, and I brought shame upon my name. Some would call for my death, and I can't offer any reasonable argument against that sentiment. All I can offer is acknowledgement of my actions and a prayer of forgiveness for my loss of self-control and for allowing my paranoia, greed, and addiction to drive this heinous act.
There are many who suspect that even this was an attempt to appeal to the judge's emotions in one last-ditch effort to reduce his sentence. But this was too little, too late. The self-reflection was needed before he decided to end Gretchen's life and steal the bright future of his own daughter. Even after this, he managed to enter a plea deal where he would plead guilty to second-degree murder in return for having a kidnapping charge against him dropped. On January 14th, 2021, David was given 38 years in prison in hopes that he would spend a long, long time reflecting on what he has done.